Grammar Girl here. I'm Mignon Fogarty, your friendly guide to the English language. We talk about writing, history, rules, and other cool stuff. Today we're going to talk about idioms the cat dragged in, and portmanteau words like summerween and brunch. In episode 976, we talked about pet speak, the online language we use to talk about and for our furry friends. We explored the cativerse and how cats have seemingly taken over the internet. Well, today we're going to delve into how the word cat has slinked its way into many English idioms, much like our beloved floofs have slinked their way into our hearts. But first, let's take a brief look at the origins of the word cat and how these critters became such a huge part of our lives. According to the online etymology dictionary, cat comes from the Latin catus, which first appeared in Europe in 75 CE, Common Era, or AD. Talk about ancient history. It was extended to big cats, lions and tigers and leopards, oh my, around 1700. A related word, feline, from the Latin felus, was first used as an adjective meaning cat-like in the 1680s. Around 1861, it came to be used as a noun meaning feline animal or domestic cat in popular language. So how and when did cats become so ingrained in our society and in our language? Well, it's true, as you may have heard, that Egyptians were responsible for cats' widespread domestication around 2,900 years ago. In fact, the cat was the official deity of Egypt. However, according to a Scientific American article by researcher Carlos Driscoll and his colleagues, research shows that cats may have lived among humans way before that. In 2004, researchers at the National Museum of Natural History in Paris discovered a man buried with a cat on the island of Cyprus, suggesting that people had a, quote, special, intentional relationship with cats nearly 10,000 years ago, unquote. DNA research of the species Felis sylvestris, published by Driscoll in 2007, confirms this theory. The statistics portal Statista reports that in 2023, there were about 47 million U.S. households with overlords. Cats. It seems like they've taken over, so it's no wonder that there are so many cat-related idioms. We can't discuss all of them here, but let's look at some of those that are more common or interesting. First, there are several that are based on cats' normal characteristics and behaviors. Any of us who have lived with cats know they are stealthy, sneaky, curious, and, well, mischievous. And they are notoriously lazy, most choosing to sleep and eat their lives away. Some of these more obvious idioms include to look like something the cat dragged in, to look like the cat that ate the canary, to play cat and mouse. When the cat's away, the mice will play. We all love rhymes. Curiosity killed the cat, cat burglar, scaredy cat or fraidy cat, and finally, catnap. Now, for some of the less obvious ones. Schrodinger's cat refers to something that can be in two different states or places at the same time, much like a cat's ninja-like ability to be in one room and then, in the next millisecond, on the roof. It was common usage by 1972 and came from Austrian physicist Erwin Schrödinger's criticism of Albert Einstein's quantum physics experiments, namely that something could exist in two different states at the same time until being observed. According to the online etymology dictionary, Schrödinger wrote, using a cat as an example, quote, "One can even set up quite ridiculous cases and described the cat situation in which the animal is both dead and alive until its state has been observed," unquote. Next, the phrase "like herding cats" refers to performing a seemingly impossible task. Given the independence and stubbornness of cats, it makes sense, right? There are a few different theories of where it came from. According to dictionary.com, this idiom possibly came from the opening scene of Monty Python's 1979 movie, The Life of Brian. In the movie, shepherds are discussing sheep, and the topic strays to cats. Can you imagine a herd of cats wanting to be sheared? Meow, meow, woo-hoo-hoo. Many claim that IT expert Dave Platt coined the phrase when he said that managing senior programmers is like herding cats. But Platt himself denied this in a Google Groups post, claiming that he'd heard the phrase from a former colleague and had found it as early as 1985 in a Washington Post magazine article. The popular show Mythbusters even verified in a 2014 episode that it is indeed impossible to herd cats. Watch it and thank me later. And what's the deal with a cat on a hot tin roof, or a cat on hot bricks in British English? Well, this idiom means to be very agitated or anxious. Poor kitty. According to the Word Histories blog, this phrase first appeared in Tennessee Williams' 1952 play of the same name. But there was also an earlier form of the phrase, to go like a cat upon a hot-baked stone, recorded by naturalist and theologian John Ray in 1678. And the meaning seems literal. You'd be agitated or anxious too if your tootsies were getting burned. Bell the cat is another interesting one that refers to having the courage to do a dangerous job. Here's an example from dictionary.com. Someone has to tell the teacher that her own son started the fire, but who will bell the cat? This expression was first seen in one of Aesop's fables, and William Langland retold the story in his Middle English poem Piers Plowman in the late 1300s. In the poem, a group of mice decide to put a bell around a cat's neck as a warning device, but none of them actually wants to be the one to do it. Smart mice. Moving on, dictionary.com defines a cool cat as a fashionable or hip person, a person who is easygoing, casual, and calm, or an admirable or excellent person. According to the blog Dictionary Scoop, this idiom was largely influenced by jazz music, particularly singer Cab Calloway, who authored dictionaries on jazz talk or jive talk. According to the blog, quote, in jazz speak, a cat wasn't just a furry friend. It was a word that could be used for anyone in the jazz scene, but typically reserved for stellar musicians who remained chill under pressure, unquote. Also, jazz musicians were often nocturnal, like actual cats. There was even a 2004 movie about Sammy Davis Jr. subtitled One Cool Cat. And several fictional cats have received the moniker, including Dr. Seuss's Cat in the Hat, Garfield, and Tom from the Tom and Jerry cartoon. Finally, we previously talked about the cat's pajamas back in episode 453. The cat's pajamas are slang for something cool, along with the whole set of phrases that were popular flapperese expressions in the 1920s, along with the bee's knees and the kipper's knickers. The cat's pajamas and the similar cat's meow were coined by Irish-American cartoonist T.A. Dorgan, according to Britannica. He did not, however, coin the cat's whiskers, which also means someone or something that's outstanding. So there you have it. We've let the cat out of the bag on some of our favorite idioms. The cat definitely didn't get our tongue this time. That segment was written by Susan K. Herman, retired multidisciplined language analyst, editor, and instructor for the federal government. U.S. retailers have been ignoring the weather and rolling out their Halloween wares. This year, spooky season began in July. The portmanteau word being used to describe this earlier-than-ever trend is Summerween, summer plus Halloween. The name seems to go back to at least 2012 when the animated TV show called Gravity Falls had an episode called Summerween, in which locals decided they wanted to celebrate Halloween twice a year. Portmanteau words, also known as blends, do just that, blend words. You can blend all of one word with a part of another, like Summerween, or you can blend just parts of two words, as in Augtober, another portmanteau used to describe the fall shopping now starts in summer trend. I just saw this blend of August and October in an article touting that pumpkin spice season is also upon us. Starbucks launched its pumpkin spice latte August 22nd this year, the earliest date ever. The difference between portmanteau words and compound words is that compound words blend two whole words together, like backpack, bookcase, and teapot. The name portmanteau is itself a French blend word. It originally referred to a type of suitcase with two parts, but it took on a new linguistic meaning in Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass. In the book, Humpty Dumpty explains what some of the invented words in the poem Jabberwocky mean. For example, he says, "Slithy" means lithe and slimy. And then he goes on to explain how these words were made by blending other words together by invoking the name of the suitcase. He says, "You see, it's like a portmanteau. There are two meanings packed up into one word." Other portmanteaus I've liked over the years include spellebrity, to describe people who are famous in the spelling bee world, and glamping, to describe upscale, glamorous camping, where you might have an actual bed in a fancy tent and access to meals prepared by a personal chef. You might remember my piece on the evolution of words for colors and how linguists use the word grue to refer to the early color that included both green and blue in many civilizations. And if you were alive and an adult in 2010, you probably remember Snowmageddon, a massive East Coast snowstorm that made everyone think of Armageddon. Blends have made multiple appearances in the American Dialect Society Word of the Year competitions. Copium, a blend of cope and opium, was a nominee for Most Creative Word of the Year in 2021, which the American Dialect Society defined as the rationalizations, justifications, and denial one uses to deal with a severe letdown or personal failure. And a candidate for least likely to succeed in 2012 was meggings, a blend of male leggings. I'd say they hit the mark on that one. But one of the two winners in that category was YOLO, for you only live once, and I still hear that all the time. A Google Ngram search has YOLO taking off around 2009, with usage going straight up ever since. So pour one out for meggings, which probably grumbles YOLO to itself every once in a while. The word humble brag won the most useful category in 2011, and that one is certainly still with us. That's a compound word, though, instead of a portmanteau, since it puts two full words together, humble and brag. In late July, I posted on Blue Sky that the word vibes is making a strong play for Word of the Year, with blends like vibe session and vibeflation, combining vibes with recession and inflation to represent that people are down about the economy, even though the economic data doesn't support it. And the origin of the word vibes even has a weak portmanteau connection. So people started using vibes as a short form of vibraphone in 1940, which is a musical instrument that's similar to a xylophone, except its bars are made out of metal instead of wood. The OED has this line from the Encyclopedia Yearbook of Jazz in 1957, for example. Adrian Rollini, known earlier as a bass saxophonist, had been concentrating on vibes since the early 1930s. And then in 1967, people started using it the way we do today to describe feelings, as in the vibes have changed. Citations in the OED include, quote, "We're not getting the right vibes," unquote, and this one that made me laugh from a London magazine called New Musical Express in 1976. Quote, "I remember when I first saw the Grateful Dead. I didn't like them much, but I felt that same vibe. Something is happening," unquote. Sadly, I couldn't find the original, so I can't tell you who said it. Hundreds of editions of the magazine are actually scanned and online, but as far as I could tell, not the one that contained this story. So, is vibraphone a portmanteau? Probably not. The first part does come from vibration, but believe it or not, phone isn't considered a standalone word in the sense of making blends, because it's what the OED calls a combining form. It's just an ending borrowed from Greek that gets added to a lot of other things: gramophone, megaphone, microphone, saxophone, and telephone, which is the word we've shortened to just phone to use when we talk about the devices we now use to surf the internet and rarely use to actually talk to people voice to voice. So, as October winds down and Thanksgiving is on the horizon, it's probably not too soon to be thinking about turducken and tofurkey. Finally, I have a Familect story from David.
Hey, Grammar Girl, it's David from Berkeley. I've got two quick Familects for you. My brother, years ago, decided to differentiate between three-tongued forks and four. He would call one a fork that had four tines. He'd call it a fork, but one with three, he would call it a threek. So we've used that forever and ever. And then the other story I've got for you is just the other day, I overheard a little girl and her dad, and the little girl was pointing at stores, and she said, "There's the bakery, and there's the Bankery." So I think I'm going to be teaching my grandchildren to call it the Bankery. Love the show. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks so much, David. Those both made me laugh out loud. If you have a Familect story to share, I'd love to hear it. And now you can send me a voice memo using the chat feature in WhatsApp. The link is in the show notes, and be sure to tell me the story behind your Familect and record your message in a nice, quiet place. Grammar Girl is a quick and dirty tips podcast. Thanks to Holly Hutchings in digital operations, Morgan Christensen in advertising, Brandon Getchus, director of podcasts, Dan Feierabend in audio, and Davina Tomlin in marketing, who just got back from a week of seeing beautiful rocks, waterfalls, and caves in Oregon. And I'm Mignon Fogarty. That's all. Thanks for listening.